Welcome to the podcast, everyone.
The Super Duper Jiu-Jitsu Happy High Five Club podcast.
That's the new name. Let's get it.
What's going on, Kieren?
Oh, man, just living my greatest life. Not being able to train jiu-jitsu has been tough in the lockdown.
Currently lockdown in Sydney.
Still lockdown. This is going to be a recurring theme.
I've just realized that I don't think we've introduced ourselves. Like, you know, this is
Not for a while.
This is episode 6 of a very new podcast series. I think we introduced ourselves on episode 1 and have not done since.
Hey, everyone. I'm Kieren. I'm a white belt under Adam Child's Alliance Sydney Jiu-Jitsu, who is sitting across the table from me. Adam?
Don't sell yourself short, bro. You do other stuff. Kieren, you're out, you used to be in the Navy. You're a nutritionist. You're an ex-bodybuilder, personal trainer. You do lots of stuff, bro. You have a YouTube channel. You run a media company with a business partner of yours.
Just a superstar.
Dude, so much stuff. But me, Adam Childs, owner with my wife of Alliance Sydney Jiu-Jitsu, black belt under Alliance head coach Fabio Gurgel. And we're here to shoot the shit.
Shoot the shit, all things jiu-jitsu and more. Beyond jiu-jitsu.
Beyond jiu-jitsu, yeah.
BJJ.
Yeah.
BJJ.com.
Kieren, what did we talk about last episode?
So last episode, we were talking about the Olympics.
Oh, the Olympics,
the Olympics. You got something to say?
Yeah, remember we were talking about Simone Biles. You know who Simone Biles is?
No, so I have no idea who Simone Biles is.
And I was shocked.
Now, I have a bit of a wager with Adam. I'd wager. He started reading off a list of names to me that he came up with.
I was so shocked yesterday that Kieren didn't know who Simone Biles is. And of course, I'll tell you who she is because there's no doubt people like Kieren who don't know who she is.
Exactly.
But then I was shocked at the fact Kieren didn't know who she is. So I listed a few of the greatest athletes of all time across various sports. And there were a couple that Kieren had never heard of. I mean, we're not, how much older am I than you? Only like 10 years older than you.
Yeah, about
it's
10
not
years
like,
and change.
It's not like, you talking to your granddad. Like, I mean.
Oh, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
When you're mentioning some of these random athletes, so you say.
So the wager is?
The wager is, I was just putting it to Adam that if he was to read or list out some of these names on air, there'd be so many people that listen that would have no idea what he's talking about or who he's talking about more accurately.
I mean, I do slightly forgive not knowing who Simone Biles is because she's essentially the greatest female gymnast, or greatest, not even female gymnast, like the greatest gymnast of all time. I say female because in competitive gymnastics, the women and men do different apparatuses, right? Or apparati? But yeah, I mean, gymnastics is in terms of, it's not international recognition, but I mean, it's not like a spectator sport like basketball is or something. So I get not knowing who she is, but she is, I was so shocked because she's so far above and beyond the competition. Like, man, like she's just,
sounds like you got a bit of a crush.
Man, like in my opinion, gymnastics, I don't train gymnastics. I mean, I did when I was a very young kid because my dad actually used to be a competitive diver, like Olympic diving.
Oh, wow.
And because of obviously all the flips and stuff divers do, like they do gymnastics or predominantly a lot of trampoline training, right? To practice the hang time they get and flipping and whatever. So I did it when I was a kid. Anyway, I think gymnasts in terms of the display of physical capabilities, man, like if you compare it to any other sport and look at, and you said, okay, which athlete has the most strength, coordination, flexibility, conditioning? Like, I mean, man, they just do the most amazing stuff. And the sport is absurdly dangerous. Like it's super dangerous that people don't realize, right? Like
you land on your bloody head.
Dude, yeah. Like you just go the other way and look at the amount of videos on TikTok or something where someone tries a backflip and lands on their face, and these people are doing like multiple backflips. Anyway, I find it super impressive. And Simone Biles is like, you just can't really compare her to another gymnast. She does all these moves that no other athlete can do or has ever been able to do. She's just crazy good. And she came up because she just withdrew from the Tokyo Olympics. I didn't see I read the article. I didn't see the interview, but I believe it was like, I think it was mental health. Like she just, I don't know, it just wasn't feeling right for her or something. And she didn't want to hurt herself. And, so she stepped aside and let a teammate take her place.
Okay.
But yeah, and then, so if you don't know who Simone Biles is, that's who she is. Look her up. She's amazing.
And if Simone Biles is out there listening to this podcast, hit us up on Instagram because we'd love to have you on. Adam's a big fan, clearly.
Oh, God. I would actually be quite funny to see a photo of me and her next to each other, I reckon, because I'm like 6'4" and she's tiny. Like, I mean, I don't know her actual height, but very small.
Right.
But yeah, and then I started mentioning some other athletes. That the other one that shocked me that you didn't know who it was Michael Schumacher.
No, I still don't remember. I can't even remember the sport.
Dude, you had to list like 20 sports before you're like
hockey.
Before you're like Formula One. That's it. Yeah, I knew it.
Right, that's it.
Michael Schumacher's the one. He was like the Ferrari driver, and more recently he had the skiing accident. I don't know if you.
I don't watch skiing either, man. Like,
Shaun White Don't know who Shaun White is.
No, I still don't remember.
You know, greatest like snowboarder.
Oh, snowboarder, right.
Yeah.
Even as you're like,
Tiger
we went over
Woods,
this
didn't
yesterday.
know who Tiger Woods was.
Oh, come on. Come off it. Everyone knows who Tiger
Rafael
Woods.
Nadal, no idea.
Oh,
You actually
Soccer?
don't know? Oh my God.
No, tennis.
Yes.
Ah, I got it. Man, okay.
But the other
maybe
one, Wayne Gretzky, you had heard of.
Yeah, I heard of his name, but I thought he was NFL. It turns out he was
NHL hockey. I'll
Yeah.
tell you a fact about Wayne Gretzky to give you an idea of just how good he was. Wayne Gretzky's famous for the quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Okay.
Have you heard that quote?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Actually, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe someone's listening and being like, he didn't say that. I'm pretty sure he did though.
You might have said it once or twice.
To give you an idea of how good he is, the NHL has like a scoring system for ranking the athletes, like most sports do. So, coaches can compare athletes when they're making trades and things like that. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it's something, just for simplicity's sake, it's something like this. Let's say you score a goal in ice hockey, your athlete profile would get 2 points on it, right?
Right.
As a ranking method, so if over your career you've scored 10 goals, you would have 20 points on your athlete profile. But if you assist a goal, so if I pass the puck to you and then you score, I would get 1 point on my athlete profile and you would get 2, right? Because you scored the goal, but I assisted by passing you the puck, right?
Makes sense.
So I'm not sure the numbers of how but something like that. So you accumulate, career stats by assisting in goals and scoring goals. Even to today, Wayne Gretzky was so successful that if you deleted all of the goals that he scored in his career, all of his goals, and just calculated his points through assisting in goals, he still has a higher career points score than any other ice hockey player in history.
That's impressive.
So like, man, you could essentially take his stats and go, Wayne Gretzky never scored a single goal. Oh, he still has higher career stats than any other player.
Wow.
Like the dude was, so he's like Michael Schumacher, Tiger Woods, Kelly Slater.
Wow.
Like,
That's impressive, but can he do an armbar?
No, but he can probably like pull your shirt over your head, take his gloves off, hit you with a hockey stick. You know?
the jersey fights in hockey. Nasty. Well, in today's episode, regardless of what we're going over is obviously roasting me about sport, but we're also going to talk about, Adam, your time in Brazil. So you lived in Brazil for 5 years. If this is your first episode listening to the podcast, Adam trained in Brazil, lived in Brazil for 5 years at one of the Alliance headquarters, where he eventually received his black belt, but not there in Vegas, which we're going to go over.
Yep.
We're going to find out why. So I wanted to basically break down why you went there, your experience in Brazil, because if you train Brazilian jiu-jitsu, obviously you would have a connotation around training in Brazil.
Mm.
Me as a newcomer into the sport, I've been training for less than 12 months, still a white belt, but training in Brazil is still seen from my perspective, and I'm sure of people with similar, experience as me, perspective is that Brazil is the place to be to train.
Like the motherland.
The
Yeah.
motherland, exactly. Like
Yeah.
going back to the motherland. So I want to find out, maybe uncover a bit of truth to find out if that's still relevant today. And we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of that today. So
Yeah. So, I mean, a bit of a brief, obviously, we'll go into random stuff. But, when I first started training, I'd done other martial arts. The martial art I was doing before jiu-jitsu was Muay Thai, which I enjoyed. I enjoy striking, but I'm
how
not
long do you do that for?
a couple of years. Like, and I'd
Yeah,
done
right.
other stuff before that, like predominantly striking.
Okay.
Um,
So
but
when you picked up jiu-jitsu, was the intention to swap from striking to grappling, or were you trying to build out
no,
to
like
MMA?
I never wanted to build out to MMA because despite the way I sound when I speak, I don't like getting hit in the head
Yeah,
and
right.
have not been
Yeah.
hit in the head that many times.
That is a bit surprising.
Yeah, because it really hurts when someone kicks you in the head. It
Mm.
hurts a lot. I take my hat off to anyone who competes in any form of striking. It's you got to be super tough, and it's not for me. But I had a friend, and now one of my students, Chris Wild, who introduced me to jujitsu. He trained a little bit at the time, and I watched a bit of UFC, but I never had the time to train in Australia. I was getting ready to move overseas because my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, her visa was expiring. She's Brazilian, so we moved over to Canada to do the classic Australian, you know, tou- tourist living in Canada, go to the snow, whatever. And then when I got
Nice.
there, I decided to find a gym. And that's where I started training. We lived in Canada for 18 months or 2 years or something like that. And got my blue belt in Canada pretty much as I was leaving. Like, I mean, I'd already announced, like, oh, yeah, I'm leaving. I'm moving to Brazil because I had already fallen in love with jiu-jitsu so much that my wife and I were going down to Brazil for our wedding. And originally we were just going to go to Brazil for the wedding and come back to Canada. But, I had decided that jiu-jitsu was what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't go to uni.
How old were you at this point, just for context? So you moved to Canada.
It's like 24, I
Right,
think,
24.
something like
Okay.
that. Yeah, so I didn't, going back further, I didn't finish year 12, right? I left school, I think it was after the first semester of year 11, and I did some traveling around Australia and stuff. So I didn't have like a degree or anything to go back on. I had looked at going to uni, but nothing interested me. And so I was like, man, like jujitsu is going to be what I do with my life. Like I want to move to Brazil and
Wow.
train at the best gym, and that'll be like my university. And I've always enjoyed teaching in general, just whatever it is, right? Like, um, so I knew I wanted to teach. At the time, I did have like the aspirations of being a world champion and all this stuff, and didn't work out. Hence why, I'm not big and famous, but but
We are big,
yeah.
but
Um, and so I said to Hernado, man, let's move. And so I had already told the gym in Canada I was moving to Brazil,
right.
and so I guess the parting gift was the blue belt, or
I was going to ask, how long did it take you to get a blue belt?
it was like a year.
Okay.
But I trained like twice a day, every day. Trained like full time, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word. And then moved to Brazil. Was there for 5 years, training and competing. The quick summary was just training full time, competing full time. Under Fabio at the Alliance headquarters. I'd done some research to find what was the best gym, and I was thinking about it.
So you weren't with an Alliance affiliate before then?
No, the first guy I trained under was a guy called Shane Rice, who is a black belt under Hickson Gracie. Was one of, I think there were only two non-Brazilians to get a black belt from Hickson, and Shane was one of them. And so he was quite, is really tough in his day. made it onto the podium at Worlds and stuff. Lost to Cobrinha a couple of times. So I think he had like some bronze or silver medals from
Wow.
gi worlds or no gi worlds. You know, so in his day, like a good, very competent jiu-jitsu practitioner. Yeah, so then I did some research into the best gyms. At that time, the only name I knew was Gracie, but I had a training partner in Canada that was like, man, there's a lot of, like, it's not all just Gracie. And because I was thinking about it like a university, I did some research and I was like, okay, what what gym is essentially the Harvard or the Oxford of jiu-jitsu gyms? And I found Alliance, you know, like Fabio himself is a 4-time world champion and created more world champions than any other instructor, taken the team Alliance to more world titles than any other team. So I was like, okay, we're going there. Moved to Brazil, lived there, trained full time for 5 years. And then after that, moved back to Australia and was starting to work towards opening Alliance Sydney here. At that time, I was a brown belt, but I still had really close contact with Fabio because I worked while I was in Brazil. I also started working as the international manager for the Alliance Jiu Jitsu Association, globally, obviously, internationally, because they've got affiliates all around the place. So I was still doing that job here in Australia. So I would speak to Fabio all the time. And then, you know, I would fly over to Jacare's gym, one of the other Alliance headquarters in Atlanta in the US. I would fly over there, you know, to meet with Fabio and, you know, for conferences and things like that. And then I would fly to Vegas, not to party, but for those who don't know, the Master World Championships. The Masters are the World Championships for competitors 30 years and older. So it's held every year in Vegas. So I would fly to Vegas to meet with Fabio and everything. So I still had heaps of close contact with Fabio. But yeah, that's essentially the reason I moved to Brazil was to pursue jiu-jitsu as a career.
So what was the plan? So by the time that you moved to Brazil, you're what, about 25, 26?
Something like that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
25, 26, around there.
Right. So you move to Canada at 24, you train for about 12 months, you get bitten by the bug, decide that that's the career path you want to go down. You're a blue belt and then you move to Brazil. Now I do want to talk about, you know, that transition, but just to finish off the context of the story till now, you're about what 26 when you move to Brazil, and then you move back to Australia as a brown belt after 5 years.
Yeah.
And then you open your gym within about 2 years of living back in Australia.
Yeah. How long was it? Might have been. Yeah. It was 2 years because when, like, I lived, my wife's Brazilian, but the city we lived in, São Paulo, she doesn't have family there or anything. So we were doing everything the hard sort of student lifestyle. São Paulo is an incredibly expensive city to live in. So it cost everything to get back to Australia. And when I mean everything, like after 5 years in Brazil, I think I had saved like $100 or something. Like I mean, I didn't make any money, you know. I taught, like I would teach English as a means to make money. The first year I was there, I just trained and then I ran out of money, right? And I obviously had to pay my membership fees and rent and food and, you know, living expenses. Yeah. So, I mean, it's worth pointing out, none of it would have been possible without my wife helping. Like she worked full time and essentially was the backbone of the whole the whole journey. But yeah, I taught English as a means to an end, and then as I, you know, was a bit higher up, I would teach jiu-jitsu, like, and teach privates and things like that. But yeah, when we moved back, just the flights, my wife's visa, we brought our dog with us back from Brazil, which for those who have never brought a dog into Australia, I have a little dog, a Yorkshire Terrier, so she weighs less than 5 kilos, right? And I'm pointing that out because bigger dogs are heavier, so they cost more. But even that, like, it was, I don't know, like maybe an $8,000 ordeal.
That's an expensive dog.
Yeah, like it's, and not only that, it's a very complicated process dealing with the Department of Agriculture and all that. So when we moved back here, we had nothing. So I think I worked at a cinema and cleaned swimming pools and
just hustled.
Yeah, and would teach and taught jiu-jitsu classes here and there as well to save money to open the gym.
Wow, that's hustling 101 right there.
That's the hustle, bro.
Yeah, man. So I just want to rewind now. Okay, so you're in Canada, you receive your blue belt, and then you decide that you want to essentially, in your view, train at the Harvard of Jiu-Jitsu at the time, which is Alliance headquarters in São Paulo.
Yeah.
What was the process in actually getting that organized? So you want to train at the gym. Is it just like you called them up, you sent them an email, you just rocked up one day to join?
Yeah, I essentially just rocked up one day.
Wow. So you moved to the city and then to train at this gym and then just one day walked into the gym?
Yeah, I mean, with some help because I didn't speak Portuguese at that time. So I think it's not, I walked in, I think, with my wife to check it out and kind of ask if I could train there. I didn't really understand that it's just a business, and as long as you're willing to pay, anyone can train there, right? I didn't really understand that, but I asked if I could train there and stuff. And I think I met Fabio at the time, and he was, super lovely. Yeah, of course, blah, 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 blah. But then I didn't start training right away because we had moved to São Paulo, but we hadn't yet found an apartment.
Where were you staying in that in between time?
My wife had a friend in the city, but it was very temporary because it was super small.
Yeah.
And my wife didn't have a job, so we kind of needed to get our, ducks in a row a little bit before I could start training. But then essentially once all that was sorted, I just rocked up and I just started training. I think I straight away, the first class of the week, the Monday morning 7 a.m. class was the first class I did. And I wanted to be doing the competitors class, which was at the time was at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
As the lunchtime class was only available for blue belts and up. And I was told that they kind of wanted to suss me out first.
Yeah, okay. So they wanted to verify your belt, essentially.
Yeah, and they let me do it straight away.
Okay.
Well, I think I did one or two classes and they're like, man, you can train at the lunch class.
Sweet.
And it was funny because it was quite a shock, if you will, because what's
the difference between?
Because when I was doing the 7 a.m. class, it's a different group of people who usually train at 7 a.m., right? It's people who train because then they go off to work. So it's doctors, lawyers or whatever. And, so you're not necessarily coming across like the active competitors. So from day one, the 7 a.m. class, even though I was a fresh blue belt, I was hanging with all the other blue belts and even some of the purple belts and everything. Not saying I'm a prodigy, just saying that that's how it was in the 7 a.m. class. And then when I started training in the lunch class, the competition class, man.
Received a smackdown.
So yeah, it was just a whole different thing. It was I just got demolished by everyone. I didn't speak Portuguese. People were not gringo friendly, gringo being a slang for foreigners. Because back then it was seen as I think I said this in a previous episode. It was seen as us stealing their jiu-jitsu secrets, right? So they weren't super friendly. There was only me and one other guy, Ali, who now owns a gym in Bahrain. He's from Bahrain. We were the only two foreigners living there, training full-time. So the lunch class was brutal at first.
How did you go doing classes in a language that you didn't speak effectively? At this point, how was your Portuguese?
Oh, pretty non-existent. I really couldn't, it's funny because when you learn a second language, you learn a lot of key phrases.
Yeah.
You'll learn how to say hi, how are you? My name's Adam.
Coffee, please. And
can I get a coffee? And so, you say that phrase and then people instantly think, oh, they speak Portuguese. And then they just start talking to you normally. And you're like, well, no.
Slow down.
I'm ready to receive your response. It must be either yes or no. That's kind of, so in the beginning it was quite hard. I mean, especially in the competition class, because it's a competition class. It's not a I'm going to translate everything into English for you class. Like the instructor doesn't. He's there to prepare the competition team. He's not there to like teach the
Babysit
technique.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So just a lot of it was learnt just from watching, and I've found that a lot anyway. You know, when even learning in English, I just want to watch the technique, and of course I listen as well. But hypothetically, I could mute a YouTube video and just watch it and be like, oh yeah, cool, and like I learn a bit more by going off and physically trying it,
Right.
you know, and then my questions will come up. But I was also was it a 3-month or a 6-month like Portuguese course?
Did you do that in Brazil?
In Brazil.
Okay.
And then, yeah, maybe it was 6 months. I can't remember. So that kind of helped me get to a high enough level that in the gym I was fine. I mean, my Portuguese is still, it's not that great, right? You know, I've got very conversational Portuguese. If you put on a movie in Portuguese, I'll follow along, but heaps of vocabulary I'm going to miss because, you know, it's entertainment, right? The script writers don't just use the same conversational words. Like reading a newspaper in Portuguese, I can't really follow because it's written differently and the vocabulary is much broader than conversational Portuguese. But I got to a point where I was like, oh, that's enough. And then I was kind of put in a situation where I started to run out of money and I needed to work. And there were 3 things I needed to do. I needed to like learn Portuguese, earn money, and train. It was like, but I didn't have time for all 3. So one had to go. I was like, well, you know, I came here to train, so that can't go, right? And if I don't have money, I can't pay to train,
Yeah.
so that can't go. So I had to ditch like further studies of Portuguese.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So did anyone in your gym speak English? Was anyone able to translate? Like, does Fabio speak a little bit of English?
Fabio speaks really good English.
Okay.
Heaps of people do because Fabio's gym is quite a premium gym. It's in a nicer area of São Paulo, like
Right.
a more.
So it's fair
I'm
to say,
hesitant to say nicer area because it's still not that nice, but it was in like a better part of São Paulo. So,
okay.
And Fabio being Fabio and Alliance being, you know, and it being his headquarters, it's a premium gym, so it comes at a premium rate. So compared to other gyms, the membership fees were quite high. I'm not saying they weren't justified, definitely worth what you paid, but compared to a Joe Blow's Jiu-Jitsu, obviously Fabio's gym was much more expensive. So the majority of the students who trained there were quite wealthy, like they were they were pretty wealthy. And the wealthy, educated people in Brazil typically speak English.
Okay.
There was for the 5 years that I was there, there weren't many students who did it tough in terms of like being super poor. Like the competition team, there was only a handful of us that really struggled because we had to pay our own way. Most of the competition team were able to train full time because they were like bankrolled by their parents or something like that.
Right.
There was like a small group of us that had to do everything on our own, and it was really hard. Now it's different. Like they have like Fabio has a lot of sponsorship programs where he helps less fortunate athletes, you know, where he'll personally sponsor them so they can train for free and everything. But those programs didn't exist back then. It was a bit more like you really needed some support.
Yeah, right. So how was the whole teaching English piece come about? How much Portuguese did you need to be able to do that?
How much Portuguese did I need to be able to teach English?
Yeah.
No, like almost none, because I kind of
you just rock up and start speaking English the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, sort of like.
G'day, cobbers. Welcome to English.
Like I had to relearn a whole bunch of English that like. I mean, I've probably already forgotten it now, but
yeah, right.
But verb conjugation, present perfect, and all these like
so you're not,
you know,
so
superlatives.
Is this beginner English or like more? It sounds like more intermediate.
Yeah, I guess maybe intermediate you would
Yeah.
say. But like just because you're a native speaker doesn't mean you actually understand
Yeah, that's a
like
good point.
the language.
And can
But
justify why things are a certain
exactly,
way.
because yeah, if students ask you why is it like that, you know, like present perfect is a good one, like you know, because it doesn't exist in Portuguese. So you'll get Brazilians ask like they don't understand why you would say something like, "What's the difference? How can you put into a sentence that is a teaching tool, and how can you explain to someone that there's a reason behind the two different sentences of I lost my keys and I have lost my keys because it doesn't exist in Portuguese. So a Brazilian goes, what is the difference between I lost my keys and I've lost my keys? Like if I asked you to
Oh, yeah,
explain
I
that
got
to
you.
me now
Yeah.
and try to tell me how I need to learn when to use which one,
Yeah, that's difficult.
right? And so I had to relearn a whole bunch of that stuff. But in the beginning, not really, because as a native speaker, sometimes you would get more advanced English speakers that just wanted to have conversational English.
Right.
So the class you would do with them was essentially you would just talk. Right. And that was super
Nice.
easy if you got along with the student and
Yeah.
you could just talk like you're two friends.
Yeah.
But if it was someone who, like, man, sometimes it'd feel like you're pulling teeth.
Yeah.
You know, this dude wants conversational English, but he's just yes, no, every question, doesn't ask me any question. Like we're not
Conversation.
conversing
Yeah.
here. But yeah, the longer I did it, the more English grammar and structure I learned.
Right.
But it was just a means to an end. I like to teach, but in terms of do I enjoy the subject English? Not whatsoever.
So at this point, you alluded to that you enjoyed the teaching aspect, which is fortunate now that you own a gym and you teach jiu-jitsu full
Every
time.
now and again, yeah.
Yeah, on occasion, only on Tuesdays. So at this point in the journey, in the Adam Childs jiu-jitsu journey, were you planning to open a gym back in Australia? Was that on the radar?
Yeah, always. Like, because I always knew that was the way to make a career out of it. Like I knew that from the beginning. Because anyone who's looking to live, like use jiu-jitsu as their career and make money from it, even if money's not your driving factor, which it wasn't for me either. I mean, if you want to have a family or whatever it is, like, I mean, everyone's got bills to pay. So the most consistent way to make money in jiu-jitsu is owning a gym. I've said it so many times before how fleeting your fame is in jiu-jitsu. I think it was last episode or the one before we spoke about how quickly, names become irrelevant in jiu-jitsu. You know, you're famous one day and then all of a sudden some other youngster comes along and, so the time that you can make, even if you're a world champion, which, okay, I never reached that level, but
You did compete at Worlds, I must.
World's Masters, yeah. I
Still counts.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah,
You're too humble.
I mean, like I fought at the Pan Ams. Like I won an invitation, not an there was like the competitive circuit in São Paulo. If you scored enough points throughout the year, you were then invited to compete in a final tournament, and if you won that, they would then pay for your flights and everything to LA to compete in the Pans. So I did that at Blue Belt. But what was I saying? What was the question again?
Yeah. So before that, you were talking about opening the gym, and it was always your plan.
All right. Yeah. So even if I were a world champion or anyone who's had success in competition, the people wanting to book you for seminars doesn't last forever, right? Like, so you can only make so much money. I mean, you could potentially make a lot of money, and then if you're savvy at business, invest and whatever, like, but in terms of just consistent income, right? Owning a gym's the way to do it. So I always knew that I wanted to come back and teach and open a gym. I mean, I did go there with the mindset of like, I really wanted to be a world champion, and I remember, I wanted to be Australia's first black belt world champion, but didn't work out.
So if I'm listening to this, I'm someone out there, maybe I'm in a similar situation to what you were in. I'm 25, 26, odd, around that age. I've been training jiu-jitsu for a little bit. Maybe I'm a blue belt, maybe I'm a white belt still, and I'm thinking the same as what you were thinking all those years ago, that I want to pursue jiu-jitsu as a career. What advice would you give to me? Has the journey along the way been what you expected it to be, or
The first thing I would say is you're old. You're too late, bro. Mid-20s, move on.
shit.
No, but I mean, I'm joking, but half not joking. Like the way that jiu-jitsu is progressing. I mean, even back when I started, I was old in the sense that, I was a 25-year-old white belt or whatever, and you're looking at the current black belt world champions who are
They're like
in their
18.
well, then they weren't, but they're mid to late 20s. Oh, sorry, early to mid 20s. So I'm like, oh, awesome. So the current best guys in the world, not only are they younger than me, but they're also already black belts and stuff. And if you follow competitive jiu-jitsu, you've seen like
It's trending down. It's
oh,
younger
man,
and
the
younger.
17 and 18-year-olds today, like crazy good. So I'm half joking, but half not, right? But if we ignore that and just advice for if you want to pursue jiu-jitsu as your career, I mean, it's not easy. A lot of people say that, oh, it's not easy, it's super hard. Well, okay, like a lot of stuff's super hard, right? But if you really want to do it, I think at this stage, you've kind of only got three options. You've either got to move to Brazil, you've either got to move to the US, or you have to come train with me. No, no, like, I mean, depending whether you're more focused on gi or no gi might influence your decision.
Right. So you're thinking along the lines of being a competitor.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, sorry, I should. Yeah, the two different things, right? Being a competitor
And
or
making a
opening a
living.
gym. If we're, just to finish that train of thought, like Lachlan Giles from Absolute MMA in Melbourne proved it when he went on a tear at the last ADCC, and he proved it that you don't have to move and live overseas to be successful. And it's true. I'm not disagreeing with Lockie, but I will also kind of say it's like, oh, well, just because one person is in this case, Lockie is like an exception to the rule.
Yes.
Like,
So you're injecting some realism here.
Yeah, I just think the odds are it's easy. I don't want to say it's easier, but like, I mean, you're just playing the odds if you go to one of the top teams in Brazil or the US. And there's a huge amount of top teams in the US as well, because a lot of the successful Brazilian competitors move to the US for a better life, and it's closer to Brazil opposed to, that's why we don't have as many, of the Brazilian black belt world champions moving to Australia and opening gyms. It's just harder visa wise. It's way further away, whereas the amount of Brazilians that live in like Miami or something, it's quite a short flight.
Yeah.
Sure, it's not that short, but
Well, North America versus South.
Yeah. Right. So, if you wanted to be if you're like, I want to be a world champion, you've got to, in my opinion, at the current jiu-jitsu market, you've either got to move to one of those countries, or you can still do it as an Australian training in Australia. But you even looking at some of the domestic guys like Lockie, like Craig, like Levi, they may not have permanently moved overseas like I did, but they've spent time traveling overseas and training overseas, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just wanting to pursue jiu-jitsu as a career as an instructor, firstly, it's super important to compete at some stage. You don't have to want to be a competitor, but if you want to be a teacher and you don't compete, nor have you ever competed, how are you going to coach your students who want to compete?
Okay.
Right? So that's very important. But I think I'll use the analogy of language, right? If you want to run a gym and own a gym and make a living teaching jiu-jitsu, you can't just be good at it, right? You have to understand it. Like, you can't just be a native speaker of English. You have to understand the why of the language, the structure of the language. And it's the same with teaching jiu-jitsu, right? Because you're going to, like, so you see bad instructors and they're like, okay, guys, let's go. We put our hand here, and then we push, and then we come on top. okay, let's go 1, 2, clap, right? And you're like, but what happens if this? Oh, you just get up,
Yeah.
because they don't actually understand it. You see world champions teach like that because I mean they're incredible athletes and it's just all natural and second nature for them. But like the same with us speaking English, but they don't actually understand what's going on, And I think you don't necessarily have to go overseas for that. You on a regular basis, you're going to be exposed to higher level jiu-jitsu, but I don't think it's as required.
So that leads me on to something that I wanted to talk to you about on this topic in general, and you sort of alluded to it there with difference in being able to do versus being able to teach. But what about the difference between skill level in terms of what's the difference in a belt standard? Like, I know this is going to be anecdotal, but what's in your opinion? What's the difference between a blue belt that received their blue belt? At insert gym name here, not a specific gym, but in Australia or even maybe in the States versus receiving one in Brazil. Is a blue belt in Brazil the same as a blue belt in Australia?
I mean, the gap's closing for sure. And it's worth pointing out that you can come across tough guys anywhere, really skilled guys anywhere. It was different back when I was over there because you didn't have as much internet, right? And YouTube and Instagram and all this stuff. You could be living in Uluru in the middle of Australia and get access to huge amounts of knowledge and train it with your partners and whatever and become a monster. So it's worth pointing that out. But
Alice Springs Alliance team is coming soon.
But as a generalization, the gap's closing by the day. But I think there's something about training. I don't know if it's something about training in Brazil, but there's something about training at top competitive teams and gyms. Man, like it's different. Not only are guys more skilled, like they just have more tenacity. Like it's just another level. And I try personally to maintain that level of my students. I try to hold my students to the same standards that Fabio held me to. And I don't want to just give out the belts. I want to, when I wanted to come back here and open a gym, it was always with the goal of elevating the level of jiu-jitsu in Australia. And so giving out free belts isn't going to do that, right? And I think it's not fair to the student either. And we would have that heaps of the time at Fabio's gym. It's not like there was like a known gym enforcer, but we would have so many people come through, and whether they were just visiting or people would, come through to suss us out. Like, we would always get like black belts from random teams coming in leading up to the worlds, like trying to, and you'd see them. I'm not joking. You'd see them like, when people are drilling before class, they'd be trying to be like sneaky and film what they're drilling. So it's
No
like,
way. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
How is that allowed? It's like an imposter in the mix.
Yeah. And so, there weren't gym enforcers, but like when Fabio would pair you with someone who was visiting, like you knew, especially in competition class, like you knew it was
the expectation was you put the smash on.
Like you had to represent, like, and it's I don't know, slightly outdated.
Is that why you
culture.
keep pairing Joey up with me?
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to smash him, bro.
Joey, for those that don't know, is a very competent brown belt.
Yeah,
and he's very strong.
But yeah, like you would you'd often get put with someone, and you knew you had to step up, and I used to like it. I remember one of my favorite moments. It actually wasn't with a visitor. It was just with another student. But I was a purple belt at the time, and the guy I was training with was a brown belt. His name Vitor, I think his name was, and we were about the same size. Like I'm 6'4", he was like 6'4"-ish. I think he had another like 5 kilos on me. He was a bit more built than I was. And we were doing this groups of 3 training, and I can't remember the exact specifics of it, but it was like we call like rodízio de pontos, which means you just change partners when points are scored. And it was the end of the class, and it was like a packed competition class. And in the competition classes, you don't even want to concede an advantage, right? Like
You're simulating competition.
yeah, you're simulating competition. And, when I say advantage, we're just assuming we're under standard rule sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you don't want to give an inch, even if you're ignoring points, you don't want to give an inch, right? Because you're really going at it. And I remember I was half guard on the bottom with this guy. And so I obviously needed to sweep him and he needed to pass. And the class had ended, but like Fabio said, like the current people, because there were multiple groups of 3, right? And doing this specific training. And Fabio was like, okay, like you keep going until the points are scored and then we're done, right? Then the class will be over. And so this went on, like, I think it was still like, I don't know, like 10 minutes after class had finished. And by this stage, everyone else had finished except me and Vitor. And
is he a visitor at this time?
No.
He's not a visitor?
Yeah, but he was newer to the gym than I was. Like he
right.
was a brown belt when he joined.
Right. Sorry, what belt were you at this point?
A purple belt.
You said that, yeah.
And, I don't want to, unfortunately, I didn't have as much competition success as I wish I could have had. But, I was considered one of the top guys for each of my belts in the gym. Like when I was a blue belt, everyone was like, dude, you're the best blue belt in the world. Go to worlds. You're going to win weight. You're going to win absolute. Like, every time there was a grading, people were like, man, you're going to get your next belt, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was good. I know it sounds a bit wanky to say, but anyway, so like
you are a bit of a wanker, so it's okay. Fits.
To be expected. So I didn't want to get my guard pass.
Right.
And then Fabio was like, come on guys, let's go. Like, like kind of losing patience, and everyone's watching. And you got to remember, like I was training every class. It wasn't just, there's like superstars in the room. I mean, it feels weird for me to say because they were just training partners and friends, but like sometimes I'll be telling a story and someone says like, you just say Lange like it's so casual, like Michael Lange, one of the best.
Gabby Garcia.
Yeah, Gabby Garcia and all these people. I'm like, Bernardo Faria. It's like, because they were just like training partners for me. Like they're not people that I would see in the street and be like, oh my God, that's so-and-so,
Yeah.
Anyway, so you got to remember there's a room full of there's like 30 black belts and, there's blue belt world champions, purple belt world champions, brown belt world champions. Like the room's like stacked with talent and everyone's watching me and Vitor. And like, it was like, come on, let's go, blah, blah, blah. And I remember like, I like came up from half guard, like onto a single leg or something. And everyone's like, yeah, everyone like starts screaming. I'm like, oh, and then like I dump him down and then like, he like scrambles back up to not let me consolidate. And people are like, oh, come on, Adam, go. And I ended up getting him and holding him down and getting the sweep. And like everyone cheered.
It's like
I
a
remember,
Coliseum.
Yeah, man. Like it, it was almost, I'm not going to say it was better than winning, a competition, but like it was just so awesome to happen at a gym like that. In better than what?
Oh, don't worry, it's an old meme. Sorry, I'm derailing you. Go ahead.
Just was nice to happen like in front of all my peers and everything. Like
that's awesome.
Was awesome, and I don't know, there were just moments like that, similar to that were against visitors. Like another one was actually when Lyoto Machida came in to train. And I think I might have been a purple belt.
Sorry, I've never heard of them. Who are they?
Lyoto Machida was a UFC fighter.
Okay.
He was the guy who like fought, like his style was karate. He was the Brazilian guy. Did he train with Anderson Silva, or they were potentially going to fight each other? I can't remember.
Okay, so around Anderson Silva's time?
Yeah, and he was
so we're talking early 2000s?
Light heavyweight world champion. He was like a UFC world champion.
Right.
He was famous for drinking his own pee. Right? Well, anyway, Machida came in to train, and I was like blue belt still, or maybe I was a purple belt. And I remember like Fabio paired me with Machida, so I was like,
okay,
it's on. Like like Fabio's not pairing me with Machida so Machida can bash up a blue belt, right, or whatever. And Machida's a black belt in Jiu Jitsu as well, right? And And yeah, I remember I was like, oh man, like, let's fucking go, right? And so
Wow.
I was like, yeah, I'm enforcing on the UFC light heavyweight world champion. Let's
Wow.
go. And yeah, I smashed him.
So you walk in. What belt is he at the time?
He's a black belt.
So he's a black belt. You get paired up as a blue belt. You get paired up with this visitor out of town, UFC world champion comes in wearing a black belt, and Favre's like, I want to put the blue belt on him.
Yeah.
That is
Or
so
maybe I was
cool.
a purple belt. I can't remember.
But even then,
But yeah,
like-
I think I can't remember. I've got a photo somewhere of me and Machida. Super, super lovely dude. Really,
Yeah.
really nice. I can't remember. I think I was like, I think I took his back or something. Like, I can't remember exactly the specifics of the
Yeah.
role, but I do remember a point where I was half guard on the bottom. And if anyone has, for people who have never rolled with a wrestler or an MMA fighter, it's hard to describe how heavy they are just from a position like being on their knees in your half guard. But I remember during the roll, even though I was dominating the whole roll, I remember thinking, I'm glad he's not allowed to punch me in the head here.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, it's a whole different thing,
Yeah.
right? If it were
Yeah.
MMA. So, I mean, I was well aware of that.
That's funny. One of my first like couple of weeks training at your gym, there's this guy there. I haven't really seen him too often anymore, but he's a blue belt. He mostly trained in no-gi, and he had an MMA background. In the first couple weeks of training, I was half guard on the bottom, and he had one arm pinned behind my back, and basically he had a complete open side and an open free hand, and he just looks at me and said, "If this was MMA, I'd be just punching you in the face right now."
Who was it?
I can't even remember his name, but really lovely guy.
Australian guy?
Yeah. He's super lovely guy. He was just having a joke with me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember at that point thinking to myself the same as what you were thinking. Like if punches were allowed, if this was MMA, this was a fight, I would be so fucked. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
And it was a pure moment of just, like humbling. It's so humbling.
Yeah, but it's also different sports, right? It's like, you know,
Yeah.
you can't be like in a boxing match and be like, oh, if takedowns were allowed, I'd be so screwed right now. You
Yeah,
know, like
yeah, I get it.
different sport. But
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think who it would be. Who blue belt do we have that
Yeah, and he
does a bit of MMA?
I think he used to do it. He doesn't do it anymore. The name will come to me. I'll probably remember
4
it offhand.
episodes later, Kieren's
Yeah.
like, Steve, that was it. I'm like, what?
Oh man! So when you were in Brazil, because you were there for 5 years, did you get an opportunity to do much travel, or was you single like focused? Like I need to train.
Super minimal travel.
Yeah.
Like we traveled. We would often go back to a city called Jiujitsu, which is the city my wife is from.
Okay, to see her family and
Yeah,
everything like that.
yeah, exactly. To see her family. Like that's the city we got married in. It's about like what is it, like 900 kilometers away from Sao Paulo. So
Okay.
you know, so it's like driving from Sydney to Melbourne or something like that.
Right.
So you know, it's they have an airport, but super dodgy, dinky little airport. So I ain't getting on one of those planes.
So you were bussing it.
Yes, yeah. So we would literally get an overnight bus, so
Yeah.
we could try to sleep, and we would sneak our dog onto the bus with us. and our dog, she's a little bit precious, so it's not like she just sat there super quiet. So it was always a bit of a pain, and it was such a trek because we'd have to go through all the Sao Paulo train system to get to the bus station, and then overnight on the bus, and then we'd get a taxi to my in-laws' house. And then if it was just for a weekend, so we would arrive there on the Saturday morning because we would have got the bus over Friday night. Then we're there Saturday, Sunday. Then we would leave Sunday night on a bus overnight just to land in Sao Paulo like Monday morning and then go straight to work or to the gym or whatever. I mean, it was fine if we were going for Christmas or during Carnival or something like that when, you know, it's a bigger period of holidays. But yeah. So we would go there all the time. I had already been to Rio before because before moving to Canada, I had been to Brazil just as a tourist,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Like when my wife and I left Australia, we went to Brazil first just for a few months, like a holiday, and then we went up to Canada. So I'd done the Rio thing, but I've been to Rio again since then. The only other place we went was Foz do Iguaçu, which is like it's where Brazil meets Argentina and I think one other country, maybe, I don't know, but it's a massive, like, it's a set of waterfalls that are, they're bigger than Niagara Falls.
Oh, wow.
Right. It's, so we went there and that was really cool. But, oh, and I went to one other city, Florianopolis, which is a part of, it's kind of like, it's a really nice area of Brazil. It's kind of like the kind of Byron Bay of Brazil.
Like a beachy town.
Yeah, it's like a small little beachy town. Yeah, really nice.
You would have
really
felt
fun.
at home then.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't travel too much. And the whole 5 years I was there, I only came home to Australia once to see friends and family because I just didn't have any money.
Yeah.
Hey, like we lived a super poor life in Brazil. Like we didn't.
Is that part of the reason? Like you. Sorry to cut you off there, but you talk often when you speak about Brazil. Like whenever we've spoken about it off air, you talk about how difficult it was. Do you think that the difficulties, or I'm just putting this to you, the difficulties that you found living in Brazil, did it stem predominantly from the funds and the poverty? And I know that we need to talk about your apartment as well, because I've seen there's a YouTube video on your old YouTube account that you sent me that was filmed on a potato, but I could see your
that's
apartment.
all we had back then, Kieren, was potatoes.
But it was like it's great. It's great. And
I never, just to clarify, I don't have a YouTube channel. It was just like I had uploaded, I think, 2 videos.
Yes.
One was like of me competing as a white belt.
your road to blue belt.
Yeah. And the
montage, which is brilliant.
And then the other was, which was all from competitions in Canada, by the way.
Yeah. Right.
And then another one was just a video I made so my friends back home in Australia could see what I was doing, what life was like. Again, this was, we didn't have Instagram and things like that. So there wasn't, you could talk to people through like Facebook chat or whatever, but it wasn't as like connected online as we are today. So, I made this crappy little video about a day in the life, and it's
great.
It was Brilliant. Just a little bit of what it was like for me living there.
Yeah. And the apartment, like, to say it was a studio apartment is probably an understatement. Like can you just describe the apartment for everyone? Because I think everyone needs to hear this.
So small, like, man, like, yeah. So we didn't live in a favela, but we lived in like, man, it was such like, I wish I had filmed the front, like the entrance to the complex. It was kind of like just in the, how sometimes you'll see in a commercial area on the street, just some like in between 2 dinky shops, some random door.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that.
Wow.
No, not kind of, it was, right? And so you would open the door and you'd go into this super
like
dark,
a narrow dark corridor.
Exactly.
And stairs go straight up or something.
And it went, and there were 2 tiny little apartments in that first little dark corridor, and then you would get out the back and there were more apartments. We actually first moved into this tiny little one that was in that dark corridor. We were only there for like a week, and dude, you've seen the YouTube video. This first one was half the size of that.
I don't know how that's possible.
Dude, it was literally a room, and like not even a room. Like when I say a room, it would fit a double bed, not a queen bed. It would fit a queen bed, a double bed, and then maybe your suitcase. Like that was it. And then the bathroom was just like, I don't know, like 2 meters by 2 meters. And it was just a toilet with a shower head up in the middle of the ceiling.
For everyone listening here, and the apartment that you ended up moving to, which is bigger than that,
was in the same complex actually.
Right.
So the reason I'm saying this is because we moved because a room out the back became available, and it was slightly more expensive, but I think like after 2 nights or something in the tiny little one, like my wife woke up in the middle of the night with a cockroach on her face, and she was like, no, I'm fucking out.
Yeah, fuck that.
So we moved out the back, right? And then, so small, right? It was it was essentially one main room. It was probably 4 meters by 3 meters or something like that.
Wow.
And that was everything. So in that room had our bed, our wardrobe, our washing machine, our fridge, our stove, like
the kitchen,
everything.
Yeah.
And then behind that room, there was just like a sink. So there was a sink with enough space for you to keep some dishes and stuff, but there was essentially just a sink and then the bathroom. And the bathroom was, it's really weird in some places in Brazil, like, well, if you're living in a cheap place like this, yeah, like you've got the toilet, like the toilet and the shower aren't separate. Like when you when you pee in the shower, you're peeing in the toilet because the toilet.
Are you admitting that you pee in the shower?
The toilet is literally in the shower. And there are these weird electrical showers, like super dodgy, like wires hanging out and everything. My God. Yeah, like so small.
Yeah,
like really, really tiny.
That's
and
what
just
really
like
blew
also
my mind.
just dirty, man. Like I remember, I really didn't enjoy living in São Paulo. I enjoyed the people, the food, the jiu-jitsu.
Sorry, just to circle back to my original question, do you think that was due to the fact that you put everything on the line for the was it the money?
Look, like, don't get me, it didn't help.
Yeah.
Right. But even like our last year in Brazil, we moved to a nicer house. It's actually a really nice house. But, a lot of the struggles, even if you've got money, don't get me wrong, it's going to be better. But there's still a lot of things that make it tough there that exist regardless of your money. When you, opposed to being a tourist somewhere, when you live there, you really depend and become part of the infrastructure. So, for example, it's just when you have to deal with the banks in Brazil, the phone companies, the internet companies. Like you think dealing with iiNet or TPG, which are internet providers here in Australia, or Telstra or whatever, you think dealing with them and having to call them is a pain? Dude, you have no idea. Like dealing with all that stuff in Brazil is so, so hard. I'll give you 2 examples. When we were leaving Brazil, I was canceling our internet plan with a company called Net. And when you would call them to try to cancel, they would say, okay, cool, I'll put you through to the cancellations department. And then they just hang up on you, right? Like, and you would call again. They just hang up on you. So you can't talk to someone to cancel, right? And that it's so common that you have the third-party companies who it's their job to chase up these other companies on your behalf, kind of like what's it called, an ombudsman or whatever?
Ombudsman, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that, right? And then once one of those companies gets onto them, then a company like Net will be like, oh. But even then, man, I was, for 6 months after leaving Brazil, I was still getting emails from Net with saying I had to pay so-and-so bill.
Wow.
I was like, no. There was another one where, I'll tell you, Fabio, he was dealing with Chim. Chim is a phone provider, notoriously bad as well, where he got a bill for using his phone internationally. Fair enough. Fabio travels a lot, right? For jiu-jitsu related stuff. So he got a bill for using his phone overseas, international rates and everything, but it was too high, right? The bill wasn't correct. I can't remember the numbers. It was something like 10,000, or no, I think it was $6,000 was the bill.
Holy shit.
And it wasn't supposed to be, right? Like
Whoa.
It was like he had proof that it should have only been whatever, 1,000 or whatever it was. And they kept billing him over and over and over to the point where he had to take them to court. Right?
Wow, really?
And Fabio won the case. Chim had to pay him $6,000 in damages. And then even after the court case, they still keep sending him the bill.
Oh my God.
And he just throws it in the trash. I mean, now years have gone by. I doubt they're still sending him the bill.
That's insane.
But man, and so, you depend on the infrastructure, catching the buses, the transport in São Paulo is atrocious. Like the traffic is just, there were some days where I lived about 5 kilometers from the gym, right? And like in São Paulo, if someone lives 20 kilometers away, forget it. Like they're like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive, right? Like I was 5Ks from the gym, and some days like it could be an hour and a half on
Right,
the bus.
you could actually
Oh,
walk.
there were plenty of times where I would get off the bus and
Walk.
walk to either the gym
Yeah.
or to work or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just like the struggles with living there are. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of beautiful things about Brazil, but yeah, just infrastructure. It's super dirty. That was the first thing I noticed coming from a country like Australia, or I've traveled to Japan. Like Tokyo is, man, you could lick the subway floor. Like it's so. I remember in Tokyo, I went into the subway, and the little like circle dots that are at the top and bottom of stairs, just like the slip to stop you from slipping.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'm not making this up. There were people like in the subway on their hands and knees cleaning the little circles with the little slip circles with toothbrushes.
Wow.
Dude, it's so clean. So, but anyway, Canada's really clean, right? Cleaner than Sydney. So coming from countries like this, it's really dirty. There was one day I remember I left our little dingy corridor to go wait for the bus, and like I walked out the door, and within the first 5 meters, I'd stepped over 2 piles of vomit and a used condom that were just on the footpath, like in the middle of the
sounds
footpath.
like a good
night. Because it sounds like my Wednesday. And like, and just, yeah, there was 2 different occasions that leaving our apartment, yeah, there was no other way out except this corridor. It was the only way out. Right? It was like a 1 meter wide corridor. It's the only way in and out of the complex. And there were 2 separate occasions that my wife was leaving for work before me, and just in the middle of the corridor is like a rat the size of a dog. And she's like, I'm not leaving. Like, you need to help me. Like, I can't get past. And I remember I was like, what do I do? Like,
kick it.
You know what I did? There were like Besser blocks lying around. Do you know what a Besser block is? Like those big building bricks.
Yes.
And I remember just because it was alive. Like, it wasn't dead, but maybe it had eaten some poison or something because it didn't run away.
Yeah.
And I remember just putting the brick like in front of it and then just tipping it over so the brick landed on it. And the screech of the rat, bro. And
Peter, stop listening now. RSPCA.
And I had to do this on 2 separate occasions.
Wow.
A third time I was walking home, and there was one bit of the corridor that like, there was the first initial corridor where the dingy apartment we lived that had the cockroach was. And then it went outside for a little bit and round a corner, and then there were the rest of the buildings. So out the back, there was like some sunlight and stuff. And there was one little tree. I remember it was nighttime, and I was walking, I was getting home, and I'm walking like under the bit where there's a little tree, and like I hear something in the tree, some rustling. I'm like, huh? And I look up, and as I look up, this mother-sized rat is just falling towards my face. And I'm just like, ah, and I just like ninja dodge out of the way, and I'm like, ah, and the rat just lands on the ground and
I love the sound effects.
I'm just like, nah, fuck this, bro. Like, just.
And that's when you move back.
Yeah, man, it was just, I don't know. So obviously that's more money related, but it's just to answer your question. There's a lot of infrastructure struggles and stuff with living in Brazil. Like, it's just not easy. And I'm not saying here's perfect. Like, obviously there's going to be pros and cons anywhere you live. But for me, I found it really hard. I had all the support from my wife, but it wasn't like we were getting bankrolled or anything. Like, everything was hard. And sometimes are really way harder than others. I had 3 surgeries in Brazil. 2 were injury related through Jiu-Jitsu. One was just, unfortunately, I had to get my appendix out. But so I had 3 surgeries. So the times that I was in hospital, or I was recovering from a surgery, so I couldn't train, and it definitely was hard, man. Like, if I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about quitting and coming back, especially when, I'm so far from my friends and family. I couldn't train. So it was like, what am I doing here? Like,
that would have been very difficult.
Yeah, it was super hard.
Worth it?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't change it now, right? Like definitely worth it. But for me, I don't want to go too sort of um, into philosophical or whatever. But I, for me in life, I really believe in whatever you do. Like it always has a price, right? And it's the price you're willing to pay. And if you want to be super successful at something or whatever you want to achieve, and it always comes at a cost. And so for some athletes, right, if we look at jiu-jitsu athletes, the price that they've paid could be, um, medical issues they'll have later in their life. The price maybe they've paid has been, a common one is socializing. A lot of professional athletes give up, you know, going drinking with friends and partying, especially if you're an athlete who is coming up and training and competing in whatever sport. But when you're in your late teens, early 20s, a lot of those people give up, you know, uh, social life, girlfriends, and all those sort of things. So, I know I might sound like I'm being a bit soft, but for me, it was a heavy price. Like it was really hard living over there and away from everyone and no money and just the constant struggles and surgeries and everything that went with it. But I mean, I was willing to pay the price, right? But you know, doesn't mean like it wasn't a cheap price. You know how sometimes you might make a purchase, maybe you buy a new computer or something, and it's totally worth it, but you're like, you still, when you stop and think about, oh man, how much money you spent, like it hurts a little, a little bit, even if it's a worthy purchase.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So for me, yeah, like it was worth it, but at least for me, emotionally, it was quite the price to pay, but I was willing to pay it.
Well, you were there for 5 years, so
Yeah.
all right. Moving forward, now that you have an established gym, you're established in Rose Bay, Sydney, Alliance, Sydney. For all those probably know that by now.
Check it out. Yep.
Check it out. Check it out. Come for a roll. What's next?
What's next for me, bro?
I'm putting you on the spot. This was not a planned question.
Not a planned question. I mean, if we talk about career-wise, my goal has always been to have the most successful gym in Sydney and Australia, the world, right?
Yeah.
But step one would be to have the most successful gym in Sydney. I mean, your definition of success might be different to mine, but I want to have a successful gym in terms of, I never got into jiu-jitsu for the money, but successful as in, of course, I can't be losing money, right? I need it to be successful so my wife and I can have a home for our son and everything. So of course that's super important, but I want it to be the most successful as in I want us to have a super high level competition team. I want the team to grow in Sydney and Australia. Alliance, in terms of the size of the team in Australia, is relatively small. It's super small, actually. Really big in Brazil and the US, bit smaller again in Europe, and then in Australasia, super tiny. So I want to grow the team over on this side of the world, so that's the goal career-wise, right? To just grow the gym and the brand and invest a lot in my students and have them compete successfully and reach their jiu-jitsu goals. But then I don't know, in terms of what's next for me individually, and just, Hanada, my wife, and our son Atlas. I don't know, man. I'm just super happy with having him. He's almost 2.5, and the silver lining of these in and out of lockdowns is getting to spend heaps more time with him as a dad than I would when the gym's open, right? So as this is being recorded, Sydney's in an extended lockdown due to COVID, and typically I'm at the gym every morning, noon, and night, right? So of course I see Atlas because I come and go for work, but every night I'm at the gym, and so I'm almost never there for his like bath time and dinner time and putting him to bed and all that. So I don't know. I get asked a lot of the time, are you going to have more kids and stuff? I don't know, right?
I'm more curious. Are you going to open another gym?
Yeah, am I going to open another gym? Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to spill too many
business
plans, but I've been using the lockdown to work on a lot of projects that should then hopefully be ready to go once the gym opens back up. Projects that will help the growth of the team, but also some projects that are just designed to give more value to the students, more teaching and learning tools for the students, things just to offer a better product and service to the students and the jiu-jitsu community. And yeah, but
I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, the overall goal is have the best gym and team in Sydney and then in Australia.
Well, I may be biased, but I definitely think you're well on your way for
Oh,
that.
thanks, Craig.
Awesome, man. Well, that was really good to talk about your time in Brazil and get an insight.
Yeah, I mean,
the history of Adam Childs.
Yeah, obviously it was only we could do
5 hours special.
We could do 50 episodes of talking about stories in Brazil, the time when I got yelled out for tapping for pressure, or
we definitely need to talk about
times
that,
where I thought I was going to get. Actually, I had quite a funny story about when I look. Maybe it's for another time. I think I told the story on the Jungle Brothers podcast once, which was. Or maybe, I don't know. I've told the story so many times about, if I ever got mugged in Brazil or was it safe or dangerous. And I have a funny story about when I thought I was getting mugged.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
Well, in the next episode, Adam recounts the story of when he got mugged. Stay tuned. Clickbait.
But awesome. What I think we're doing something a bit different next episode.
Yes, we are. Yeah, so Adam's given me the subtle reminder there. So if you in next episode, where this will be episode number 7, Lucky 7, we're going to be doing a segment on Ask a Black Belt. So if you have any questions that you want to ask a black belt, meaning Adam Childs, and you've just heard his biography there, so you know that he's very qualified to answer them, please submit them to the show. To submit them to the show, either go to my personal Instagram, which is at Kieren Lefevre. That's Kieren for Kieren and Lefevre for Lefevre, or my YouTube channel under the same name. And to reach Adam, submit to Alliance Sydney BJJ is the Instagram handle there. So slide into the DMs, hit us up on any of the socials, or just direct message us anywhere you find us there, and we will answer them in the next episode.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Thanks for listening.
All right, guys. Laters.